The story begins with Gerald and Jessie, a couple whose relationship is on shaky ground, setting off on a getaway to a secluded house in Alabama. Their hope is to rekindle their romance during the trip. While packing, Gerald brings along a pair of handcuffs, hinting at plans he's yet to reveal. As they drive through the scenic landscape, Gerald makes a sexual advance that Jessie turns down. Trying to reassure her, Gerald insists the trip will help them reconnect. Along the way, they notice a stray dog eating roadkill. Gerald stops and honks, shooing it away, while Jessie, spotting a collar, wonders if it has an owner. Upon arrival at the elegant house, Jessie finds a fridge full of gourmet food and decides to feed the dog with some of the expensive meat. Meanwhile, Gerald secretly takes a Viagra pill in the bathroom, preparing for intimacy. He's visibly annoyed when he finds Jessie feeding the dog premium Kobe beef, but decides to let it go. They enter the house, leaving the door open. Jessie changes into a revealing nightgown and tries to set a seductive mood. Gerald returns with the handcuffs and, despite her hesitation, fastens her wrists to the bedposts. He swallows another Viagra pill, signaling his intent to push forward physically. Jessie's discomfort grows, but Gerald disregards it, encouraging her to role-play a scenario that clearly unsettles her. As Gerald becomes increasingly aggressive with his fantasy, Jessie firmly tells him to stop. Frustrated, Gerald questions why she came, if she wasn't willing to engage with him sexually. Jessie tells him she can't participate in a scenario that feels like assault, and asks to be released. Gerald ignores her and stands up, prompting Jessie to finally tell him their relationship is over. Gerald turns defensive, blaming their problems on his sexual inadequacies. Jessie, trying to soothe the situation, suggests they talk and once more asks to be freed. But Gerald's demeanor shifts, and he ominously questions what he might do next. As he climbs over her, Jessie grows terrified. When he tries to force himself on her, she bites his lip, making him recoil in pain. Suddenly, Gerald starts showing signs of distress. Jessie, noticing his changed expression, asks if he's okay, but he doesn't respond. He collapses on top of her, and Jessie initially believes it's another one of his games. She begs him to get up, but as he remains unresponsive, panic sets in. Still bound, she pushes his body off with her legs. Gerald falls, hits his head, and begins to bleed. Jessie is now alone, trapped and terrified in the remote house. She cries out for help, but no one hears her. As night descends, she's still shackled to the bed, struggling in vain to escape. Then she hears footsteps, hoping for help. She's devastated to see the same dog return. It approaches Gerald's corpse, drawn by hunger, and despite Jessie's screams, begins eating his flesh. To Jessie's horror, Gerald suddenly appears to speak. She desperately pleads for him to release her, only to realize that his body is still motionless on the floor. The speaking Gerald is a hallucination, a manifestation of her deteriorating mental state brought on by trauma and isolation. The vision of Gerald taunts her, echoing past criticisms and challenging her to survive. Motivated by a surge of willpower, Jessie painfully frees one hand, breaks the bedpost, and finally escapes the cuffs. As she rises, a surreal moment strikes her. She sees her body still restrained on the bed, symbolizing her inner struggle. As the hallucination of Gerald continues to speak, Jessie slips into a memory from childhood. She recalls a lakeside family trip and an argument between her parents. During a solar eclipse, her father took advantage of her, leaving deep emotional scars that still affect her today. Back in the present, the imagined version of Gerald questions why Jessie never told anyone about the trauma from her past. She confesses that she keeps many fears and secrets buried deep inside. When Gerald mentions the dog fleeing in fear, Jessie brushes it off as another illusion. She slips back into memories of her childhood. In this dream, she's in her bedroom after the lake incident. Her father approaches her, offering a twisted apology and manipulating her into staying silent, claiming it's necessary to protect his marriage with her mother. This painful secret has haunted Jessie ever since. Suddenly, Jessie is jolted awake as the dog bites her leg. She fights it off, but it quickly returns to continue feeding on Gerald's corpse. The hallucination of Gerald begins to speak again, this time reflecting on mortality. The conversation overwhelms Jessie, triggering hyperventilation and panic. Soon she finds herself mentally transported again, this time picturing her younger self handcuffed to a bed, just like she is now inside the lake house. She approaches the child version of herself and expresses deep sorrow. A flashback follows, showing a family dinner where she, still reeling from her father's betrayal and lack of remorse, angrily shatters a glass. Later, her father suddenly confronts her in a threatening manner. Snapping out of the memory, Jessie looks around and spots a glass on a nearby shelf. A hallucinated version of herself nods approvingly at the idea of using it, though she warns Jessie it will be excruciating. Gerald's ghostly image adds that the pain may work in her favor. Her blood might help her hand slip through the cuff. He offers a final caution, but Jessie responds that she has no other choice. The imagined Jessie urges her to visualize every step before taking action. Jessie steadies herself, takes a deep breath, and slowly reaches for the wooden shelf, eyes fixed on the glass, her only hope for freedom. Jessie carefully positions the piece of glass against the bed's wooden plank. After counting to 3, she slams it down, shattering it into sharp fragments. With determination and trembling hands, she selects a shard and begins cutting her wrist. The pain is unimaginable, but she forces herself to continue. Slowly her hand begins to slip through the cuff, the price being torn skin and exposed tissue. At last she frees herself. Wasting no time, Jessie scrambles to the other side of the bed. She spots her phone and lunges for it, only to discover it's completely dead. Undeterred, she reaches for the car keys, though her injured hand barely cooperates. After several attempts, she manages to grip the key with her mouth and uses it to unlock her other hand. Now free, Jessie stumbles to the bathroom sink, trying to clean her wound. She attempts to drink from the tap, but her body rejects it. She hasn't eaten or had water in days. After wrapping her injured hand with a bandage she finds, Jessie, exhausted and in pain, collapses into sleep on the bed. She's soon awakened by the sharp pain of the dog biting her hand. In a burst of panic and rage, she fights it off and drives it away. That's when she notices Gerald's rotting, half-eaten body on the floor, a grotesque reminder of what she's endured. Then she sees the dog staring at something, frozen in fear, before it darts into another room. Sensing something or someone else in the house, Jessie cautiously walks toward the door. There, to her horror, stands the same ghostly figure she'd imagined earlier. The one she feared was real. Without hesitation, she removes her wedding ring and holds it out to him. The figure examines it silently. Jessie then walks out, gets into her car, and drives off. After a while, she suddenly stops, seeing a vision of Gerald saying goodbye to her one last time. She continues driving, but the pain in her hand becomes unbearable. Dizzy and weak, she dozes off at the wheel and crashes into a tree. The loud impact draws attention from a nearby house, and its light gives her a flicker of hope. Though bloodied and badly hurt, Jessie remains alive and conscious. A person with a flashlight approaches, bringing rescue. In the next scene, Jessie is shown in her office. Her hand, still gloved and not fully healed, trembles as she picks up a pen. She writes slowly with effort. Doctors confirm that Gerald died of a heart attack, and her insurance has been processed. Life has returned to something resembling normalcy, at least on the surface. But every night before she sleeps, she replays her ordeal in her mind. One lingering thought always haunts her. What happened to her wedding ring? Jessie has since created a foundation to help survivors of trauma, especially young people. She shares that while she appears composed during the day, the nights remain long and heavy. 6 months later, Jessie sees a newspaper headline featuring a man named Raymond Jubber, a serial killer with a grotesque condition called acromegaly, which causes abnormal growth of body parts. He had murdered and dismembered his sister and her husband, whom he bizarrely called his parents. Police finally caught him. When Jessie had seen the mysterious man in her house, it wasn't a hallucination, it was Jubber. Now she confronts him in court. Though he had never spoken since his arrest, he's visibly shaken when he sees her. Jessie, drawing strength from within, sees the shadows of her father and Gerald in him. She tells him calmly and bravely that he looks much smaller than she remembered. She walks out of the courtroom with her head high, having faced her past and her fears at last. And that concludes the movie.